I have my Hump Bowl here that has been sitting loosely covered for about 24 hours, sitting kind of like this, so air could still get in there. It's gotten a little warmer in the studio, been high 70s. These things can vary, certainly, depending on weather. And so it feels stiff. How do I know? It just feels kind of dry by the touch of my fingertips, but you could try and pull it away from the bowl. And if it bends just a little bit of movement, then that's good. If it bends a lot, it's not ready. If it doesn't bend at all, then I'm surprised it hasn't cracked yet. But should bend just a little bit. Yeah, see that? Just a little bend there. If you leave it sitting too long, it's going to crack, right? This clay is going to shrink around the form, and then it's going to have nowhere to go, so it's going to crack. So you got to be careful of that. And while it's supported on the form, I can do some texturing, some stamping, that sort of thing. And I have this tool that I made. Just took a coil that was tapered at either end, and I carved these shapes, and then I took a little scoop out of the middle, kind of a pine cone design, a little bit like eyeballs. So we will roll that around the edge of this and get some cool texture going on. Okay, that's working pretty good. See if we can get some texture happening a little higher up here. Maybe it'll line up. Maybe it won't. But you never know until you try. Sort of missed a spot there. Let's see if I can get that. Say it gets a little messy, you don't like what's happening there. You could take your metal rib, smooth it out. And then I'll try and just kind of line this eye up right there. That's not too bad. A little messy here again. I'll take my popsicle stick tool, and then I'm gonna just kind of imagine a nice edge on here, what that might do. Just kind of give it some resolution here. So it's good to approach things with a plan, but often you need to improvise and just use your own aesthetic sensibilities to come up with some cool designs, some cool patterns. Take some time and create some stamps, some rollers, some tools that you can make to decorate. Set yourself up for success by making yourself some good tools that you can use. Or you can take the time and do some carving. And I don't intend for you to totally imitate what I'm doing. I'm trying to inspire you to find some creative solutions and aesthetic sensibility of your own. It takes a lot of time to really develop that, but that's what we're here to do, to learn skills and also to help develop our creative sensibility, our creative voice. Now I'm going to work on this top edge. I'm going to take a little bit of time to clean up some of these marks, this pattern, because I want it to look relatively resolved, but I'm just going to kind of improvise some shapes in there that'll make it feel more complete and intentional. The next thing I want to do is create a foot on this bowl that's going to lift it up and give it a little bit more height, make it feel lighter and sort of more noble in a way. It's also going to help with glazing and give the bowl a place for the glaze to stop, and also help make it more stable. The rule of thumb with a foot on a bowl is that it should be 1/3 of the diameter. So if we flip this over and we measure this, and it is 8 inches, so 1/3 of that is going to be about 2 3/4, roughly. 2 3/4. It's about that big. This cup is actually not too far off. What I could do is stand over it and just take a look and see where I think that center point is. And then I could use my wire tool. Because this bends, right? You can't use a straight tool. You need to use something that also bends in order to measure it. I'll check this back side. And I see, okay, now it needs to come over just a little bit. I can check, measure here again. And that looks pretty good. So I'm going to hold this right there, and then I can trace this line. Another way to find that center point is with a banding wheel, and I have a couple different ones. This is a fancy one. This is like going to cost about $100 possibly. So you might not want to invest in this unless you're serious about long-term ceramics. But what's nice about this weighted one is that it'll continue to rotate, and that's really nice if, say, you wanted to paint something on there really evenly. You know, you have your pot and then you just get your brush, right, with some underglaze or glaze on there. That's what's great about this type of banding wheel. Nidec. I have this one. I believe it's called a triangle. And it's much cheaper quality. It doesn't rotate as smoothly or continuously, but it's fine. This one will get the job done. And so I want to try and center the pot, the bowl, on this banding wheel. And if I hold this pencil in the same spot and I rotate here, I can see, come in a little tighter, see, boom, okay, right there it touches, and then there's more of a gap. Okay, so that tells me where my mark is that I made, that the bowl needs to go that direction, because that's where it's closest to the pencil, that's where it touched it. So I'm going to go this way just a hair, and then we'll try that again. Okay, it touched right there. Now it's moving away. Touched right there. Okay, so it needs to go that way. So here's my mark. I find the center of that mark. It needs to go that way. I'll erase that mark and rotate it again. Okay, not touching, so I'm going to move it in a little bit more. And rotate it, and then it touches right there. That's right where it touched. Find the center of that mark, and then it needs to go that way. Move it a hair, erase my mark, and now the pencil is touching, or very close to touching, all the way around with my hand totally stationary. So now I know it's pretty centered. Might be easier to see down here now. So if I rotate it, you see that, how it's all so close to that pencil without it touching, but that's pretty darn centered. So now what I can do is hold this pencil still and rotate. You can hold it with two hands. Hold the pencil with two hands. You might need a friend to rotate your turntable while you hold your pencil or your needle tool, whatever you're using. There we go. So now I have a circle there. Another thing you could do is you could find the center. You could find the center, make a dot, and then do your measuring, right? Like we did with the cup. And then check and see if that's the center. Find where that center point is, and then you could use a protractor, or you could improvise one and draw a circle. So there's a lot of ways to create that circle to find where your foot needs to go. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna score along the inside of that line, because that's about where my foot needs to be. I like a kind of wide foot because it's going to be very stable. A narrow foot might look more graceful, might look more pretty, but it's not going to be as functional. So now I want to create a really clean coil that can go on there. And it's going to be sort of like a slab coil. And I roll it really carefully in my hands. And then I can set it on the table, carefully work my hand down to one side, back to the other side, and I'm going to keep working it for a little while here. I'm not going to rush it because it's important that it's nice and clean. I think it's going to need to get a lot thinner, and this is probably more clay than I need. So I'm going to remove a little bit, but just be aware, it's better to have more clay than you think you need than less. You can always cut off excess clay. And then I can check and see if I have enough, and that's good. I can see I have enough excess, which is nice. Now I'm going to get my rolling pin, flatten this out, not too flat. Get it nice and even here. Okay. Now I'm gonna get my bowl. I'm gonna score this. This one is a bit rectangular. You could go for something a little rounder, but I'm gonna make kind of a tall, thin foot. It's good to have a reference in mind of what you want to do. I really like the foot on this soup bowl, so I'm aiming for something kind of like that. So now I'll add some moisture here, score that again, and now I'll bring my bowl over and carefully put this on, lining it up with the line that I've drawn. I'm going to have it kind of overlap there using my fettling knife, or you could use your rib, your metal rib. I'm going to cut through, and see as I cut through both of these at the same time, remove the outside, remove the inside. Now they should line up pretty darn good. Then I'll score in here. And I'm going to rotate this. Okay, I got it all lined up. That's pretty good. Clean up the inside a little bit more, and then I'm gonna compress all along here. I love the Philippe Farreau 7-inch eye modeling tool because it has that convex edge right there that's really nice to get into that area. You could use like a pencil eraser, that actually would work just fine, but something that's going to help you get into the corners there. Okay, now I'm going to attach the edge here. Even if you want there to be a nice separation line there, you're going to need to connect this really well, and then you could come back and create that line later. But if you just leave that line, it's going to want to crack right in there. Because, first of all, it's a thin piece coming into contact with a thicker piece. And by leaving that line there, you're saying, hey, you want to crack? Crack right here. You want to at least smooth it in and create some structural integrity. And then if you wanted to later, you could come back and kind of draw a line. And it is nice to have a line there to like divide up the shape of the object in a really assertive way, and also to have a clear line where you know you want the glaze to stop. I think it would be cooler if it came out, like if it was like came out a little bit. So I'm gonna flare it out. And this is where it's nice to have your turntable, your banding wheel, but you don't have to have it. Bending this out to create a little flare. And that's right where my connection is. And just add a little bit of clay on there because I can feel just a slight little bump there. That should be pretty good. If you want to be ultra careful, you could even get a level and put it on there. That's not too bad. Looks like this side is a teeny bit high, but not much. If you look over here, and it looks like this side is a bit high. This side was more noticeably high, so I could cut off just a hair. Could take off a little more, but once I flip this over, the circumstances could change a little bit. So now, before I can flip this back over, I need to wait for this to stiffen up. If you had a blow dryer or a heat gun or a torch, like a propane torch, you could dry this out a little bit. I wouldn't do it overkill, but just a little bit of heat on there might speed up that process. Otherwise, I'm gonna wrap up this area and leave this exposed and allow it to stiffen up. So this bowl has been sitting with the foot exposed for about an hour, and it feels pretty stiff. When I tug on it, it's not really moving. It feels like it could move if I really yanked on it, but I don't want to do that. While it's flipped over, I'll go ahead and sign it. I'm going to pull it off of the form, and in order to do that, I'm going to just kind of pull away from the form. And I can feel this one's actually been sitting probably a little longer than it should have on the form, and it's really grabbing onto it. So I got to be careful not to crack my bowl as I pull it off of this form. So I'm rotating it and just pulling away, rotating it, pulling away. Seeing some space starting to happen. Now, oh, perfect. Dropped right out of there. Inside looks pretty good. And then look at how it sits up on that foot. Has some lift to it. You could check it and see if it's level. And it's not terrible. It's a little high over here. They should be level and symmetrical. Not bad. There we go. Flip it back over, and then I'll clean up this rim. I have a banding wheel. I could use that, but many of you don't, so I'll do this without a banding wheel. And I'm going to just cut off this edge because it's a really hard edge. And you want to have a nice soft lip so it doesn't chip, and you want it to feel nice. You want it to be ergonomical and work well with your body and be comfortable. When you think about that favorite bowl, that favorite cup that you have, and like, what are the attributes of it that make you like it so much? Feels nice in your hand, It's nice to sip from. It pours well. So how do we take those things that we know about the forms, the vessels, the wares that we really love, that we use, and apply them to the things that we make? Okay, so now the inside edge, I'm going to work on that. That's pretty good. Sometimes the foot, because I've manipulated it, it might not sit as well as it could. Check it. Does it rock? Actually feels pretty good, but you might do just a little pressure, a little rotation. Something you don't want to push too hard. You don't want to mess it up, but just help it sit real stable. And then I'm going to take my sponge, and I'm pretty happy with what's going on with this lip. And I don't want to do too much to it. I just want to smooth it out. Working it with the sponge, rotating around. There we go, that's pretty good. And then I'll just sponge the inside a little bit. Take a step back from your vessel, from your bowl. Get a good look at it from down low. See how that foot just makes it look a little more noble, gives it some shadow underneath it, makes it sit real nice so it doesn't rock. And when you glaze it, then the glaze is going to want to stop right there. You'll glaze it right up to this line, and the glaze will want to stop right there. So you're saying, hey glaze, stop right here.